So, I've always found Stinkmeaner to be an interesting character in the Boondocks, not just because he's shockingly hilarious, offensive, and memorable, but also because he constantly hovers between these two weird spaces of being a recurring side character who's very important to the show, but also a character who overall is not really important at all. There's at least one Stinkmeaner episode in every season of the Boondocks, and outside of the very first one in season 1, the other 3 feel like these supernatural horror stories that happen in their own universe outside of the main Boondocks timeline. There are no other episodes in the Boondocks that have the same supernatural, coming back from the dead, killer army of old black sitcom stars, and human cloning bullshit that the Stinkmeaner episodes do. In a way, the Stinkmeaner episodes feel comparable to the Treehouse of Horror episodes from The Simpsons. Halloween specials that come out once a season but exist separate from the rest of the series. And now that I think about it, even the Granddad's Fight episode has the dream sequence where Huey's fighting the blind nigga samurai who was basically just Stinkmeaner if he was a Samurai Champloo character.
What's good? What's really good?
But one thing I always really appreciated about the Stinkmeaner episodes is that they always have an important message about life within them. Granddad's Fight teaches the importance of restraint in moments that may tempt you to violence, and how dangerous and potentially catastrophic a wounded pride can be if your ego isn't in check. Or, a nigga moment. Stinkmeaner Strikes Back from season 2 was all about facing the repercussions of your actions, sort of like the story of The Last of Us 2. It also shows that peace and common ground can sometimes be found even amongst the worst of us. And as much as I do hate to acknowledge the existence of the Boondocks' 4th season, the Stinkmeaner episode of that season called The Stinkmeaner Clone Wars Have Begun does have a good message about people becoming the monsters they hate if they engage with those monsters long enough. It also lazily rehashes the same messages from the first Stinkmeaner episode, but season 4 gonna season 4. What can I say?
This is where we're gonna do some shit we already did and just pretend you didn't see that shit the first time. That's right, nigga. We don't respect your intelligence.
This is bullshit.
The episode with the message that most relates to the theme of this video, though, is the message from the Hideaki episode in season 3, which I will let Stinkmeaner himself say in the eloquent manner that only he can.
There's only one way to end the nigga moment for good. Jail.
Jail?
Jail. That makes sense.
And that's the moral of the story. Some niggas just need to go to jail. I might be in hell, but at least I ain't in jail, nigga.
Slight tangent that will come back around in the end, but Mark Lamont Hill has quickly become one of my favorite personalities in the podcasting space. And even though I knew about him for years from his CNN days and even being a professor at the college that I went to for a brief time, I never really knew much else about him until we joined the Joe Budden podcast a year or 2 ago and really started to show off his personality and general knowledge. Mark makes many great points that I agree with, but one that I've always struggled to fully accept is his belief that no one should go to jail. Even if he is personally attacked or wronged in some way, he doesn't believe in pressing charges that would lead to that individual being incarcerated. He believes that jail and the prison system is not the best way to rehabilitate a person and will only cause that person more harm and in turn make them a greater danger to society in the end. And to a certain extent, I agree that the prison system of America is not designed to rehabilitate criminals. It's designed to house criminals and make money off of keeping them in a cycle of bondage. And for many small-time criminals, I also agree that prison is not the best answer for helping them reintegrate into society. But when it comes to people like Stinkmeaner and the Hideaki, how many chances do people like that actually deserve before it becomes clear that they cannot be allowed to live in normal civilization? Every case is unique, and they should be treated in their own way. And we also all have our own specific beliefs in what defines justice for every crime committed. Some motherfuckers deserve a stern talking to. Some motherfuckers deserve to get their ass beat. In my opinion, some motherfuckers need to go to jail. And I know it's controversial to say, but for some,
I'm not going to be able to psychologize all of them on the corner. Some of them going to sleep for good!
The rules and laws of society are dictated by the worst of its people. There could be 999 people in a room who have no intentions of hurting or harming anyone. But as long as there's just one person in that room who does intend to do harm and has the means to do so, the entire room must be placed under strict rules to protect the collective. Stinkmeaner is that 1 in 1,000. He is that unpredictable and unhinged force that could f*** it up for everybody with one impulsive and violent decision. And no matter how much therapy, counseling, or good people around them they may have, some people through nature and nurture are just wired differently. And unfortunately, For the sake of all of us, they have to be separated from the rest of society in order to protect society. That's an opinion I've pretty much always had, but never liked that I believed. I don't want to believe that some people are irredeemable, or that their moral compass is unsalvageable after they commit a terrible act. But it is easier to simply believe that and let things be than it is to waste your life trying to save everyone. Looking at the world that way takes much less time, energy, and empathy than the latter. And those are three things that are quickly becoming a shortage in this world the older I get. The Boondocks itself is never worried about saving Stinkmeaner either. Even Huey, whose whole premise as a character is that he's too concerned with being the hero no one asked for, never once considers the possibility of rehabilitating Stinkmeaner. His only answer for how Granddad should handle the various Stinkmeaner situations he gets in is to avoid Stinkmeaner at all costs. Don't engage and hope he leaves you alone. I think that's what most of us do when we run into people who are potentially dangerous. Avert your eyes, keep moving, don't make yourself a target, and hope they don't notice you and have no reason to engage with you first. And it doesn't even have to be people who are potentially dangerous. It could just be a harmless vagrant, or a crying child, or an elderly man or woman who might need assistance, but you just don't feel like taking the time to help in that moment. There are many types of people who need to be saved, for lack of a better phrase, who we still don't for our own selfish reasons. You can't save everybody. Everybody can't go. There's only so much room on the boat. Contrary to what good old GW might have said, some children do get left behind. And I don't say that with pride. I say that as a tragic fact of life. I really do love Huey's pseudo-eulogy at the end of the first Stinkmeaner episode when it comes to how he and the Freemans, well, except for Riley maybe, viewed Stinkmeaner in the end.
Colonel Stinkmeaner had no family and no friends. He lived a life without love or companionship or even pets. He was a horrible, awful human being, and in truth, the world was better off with him dead. Still, he was our brother.
Forgive us for taking this man's life.
He was our brother. He was a horrible person who did horrible things to the Freeman family specifically, but they still mourned his death regardless because he was living through the same fucked up world with the same issues that they were. I think that's the best that can be asked of everyday people when it comes to the Stinkmeaners of the world, the people who can't be saved. Regardless of how much of a piece of shit that Stinkmeaner was, regardless that Stinkmeaner probably would have spit on Granddad's grave if he had been the one to die in that fight. Even if Stinkmeaner didn't deserve to go out like that, and even if he did, he still deserved the decency and respect that all humans deserve in death. I will say that me personally, I don't know if I'm mourning the death of those that I didn't fuck with in life. But I respect anyone who can look past all of that and still pay their respects to even the worst of us. That ability to sympathize even with the suffering of monsters is a sign of a very good person. It's not the only sign of a good person, but it is a very big one. Even though he's written to be an extreme example of this, I think we all have people like Stinkmeaner in our lives. Self-destructive people who always seem to be angry or always end up making the worst possible decisions that hurt themselves and others. I think most of us would fight much harder to save or redeem a man like Stinkmeaner if he was our uncle, our father, or our brother or something like that. But if he was just some random blind nigga on the street, then we most likely would treat him accordingly. I can't say if Stinkmeaner was worthy of redemption or forgiveness. Putting myself in Granddad's shoes, I'm pretty sure I would struggle with seeing the humanity in him as well. I do think that selfishly, I've always been worried about what kind of man that would make me for not trying to save him and only thinking of myself and my own self-preservation. I like to think of myself as a good person, but when it comes to how much I'd be willing to give of myself to help others, a lot of times I seem to fall short than the ideal goal for all people. I don't know if that's something that other people understand or resonate with, but it is something that I've always been insecure about. But I want to hear from you. Do you think that Stinkmeaner is truly irredeemable? Is there a level to a person's transgressions to which they are too far gone to be saved or reasoned with? And how would you deal with Stinkmeaner if you were the one in Granddad's shoes? I want to see it all in the comments below. This whole topic of saving the unsavable reminds me of this story that I can't seem to find anywhere, but I know that I read as a kid. A story about a man who became exceedingly rich and wealthy, and one day he decided he wanted to save the world, so he gave all of his money to causes that he thought would accomplish that. He tried to end world hunger, sickness, war, everything that plagues humanity. He threw all the money he could at to try to fix. But all of his money wasn't enough. So once he was out of money, he gave his body to the world, one limb at a time until there was nothing left of him. And and then he died, literally giving everything he had to a broken world that could never fully be fixed. I used to read that story and think, God damn, that was fucking depressing. But now I look at it a little differently. It is sad that the issues of the world will probably never be solved. There will always be suffering, there will always be war, and there will always be people who need to be saved, but for whatever reason, cannot be. But despite how tragic and daunting that may be to anyone who wants to help people, I've come to realize that the rich man's mistake was not in wanting to help, but in foolishly thinking that he could do it all himself. No man with endless money is going to save the world with large gestures of charity. Absolutely, it could help, but it won't be what ends up fixing everything. It's the smaller acts of giving from everyday people to one another that will truly make the world a better place. Neighbor to neighbor, stranger to stranger, all that cheesy shit. The continuous gestures of kindness that we can afford to give each other is what will help us come closer to a world that isn't so full of hatred, loss, and tragedy. A lot of people have left this comment in my videos about the Boondocks, talking about how they really love this one quote from the show. So I'll end the video with it. When asked what to do when you can't do anything, but there's nothing you can do about it, a wise man once replied, "You do what you can." And I hope that's what we all continue to do. Everything we can do,